or whatever it was, I'd say yes to it. And my dad was so scared for me. He called my manager and he was like, listen, Alanna, sometimes she has her head up her ass because she will say yes to dressing up like a chicken and tap dancing in the middle of the freeway if it was, if she's offered this. So please be careful when it comes to these kind of offers for her. You just make sure that they are worth her while because she said yes to everything and it pisses me off.
What's going on, everybody? This is a special edition of the Countdown City Geekcast. My name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me is Retro Ray and Kyle, the Kenner Hunter, and we have a very special guest with us today. She is a fantastic, very talented actress, as well as a voice actress. You've seen her in about 1,000 things that you possibly love. The fantastic, the wonderful Alanna Ubach. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, you guys. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
You are having such a busy year, and it's well deserved because
Thank
you've joined forces with Seth MacFarlane. The TED series is absolutely hysterical. I don't know how he's able to just be so witty, and the banter is just fall on the floor funny. Just real quick, because that's what everybody's watching and talking about right now. What does it mean to you to be part of such a great comedy project with the great Seth MacFarlane?
I can't believe it. He had seen a lot of actresses for this role, and it was very personal for him because this actress, this role, Susan, is based on someone he knows very well. And so it was very personal to him. That entire family he knows well. And he thought, well, who will be closest to the person I know? And I went in, I tested. They had they basically had this chemistry read with Scott, myself, and then I didn't hear anything for like a month and a half. And then finally he called and had me back to read a couple more scenes in addition to what I had originally read. And I went in and Scott Grimes was there again. They had hired him and they had hired Georgia and they had hired Max. So they were just missing that one puzzle piece. And I went in again and that was it. He was like, okay, I'm happy. I'll let network know that you're my first choice. And I just, I just burst out crying. I couldn't believe it. It was,
Wow.
it's so it's such a process,
Sure.
when you're trying to, snag a role. It's never easy for me. I don't get offers. I still have to go through the whole audition process and everything. So, it's always a challenge.
Wow.
I'm gonna let Ray and Kyle jump in here in just a second, but I do not understand how you do not get more offers and just kind of without having to audition because you are so talented, you're
Oh,
so
bless
versatile,
you, bless
and
you,
you're
bless
a
you.
you're a comedic genius. And this I'm gonna ask you more stuff about like some of the stuff you've had to do on this first season of Ted that are just hysterical to me. But Seth put together just a fantastic cast, and the writing is spectacular.
Thank
And
you.
you shine once again. I don't know how you're pulling off
I
being
just spit out
serious.
my gum. I was like, "Well, let me explain to you." I think the biggest reason why they do bring me in to read is that a lot of the times when you do character work, they haven't seen you play that role before,
Sure.
and so if you go from one character to the next, it confuses a lot of people. And so they're like, well, we've never really seen her play this character before. The character's kind of a bit of a wallflower and innocent, and she plays a lot of tough. She plays that mom, the alcoholic on Euphoria. That's the last thing we saw her in. So, can she really come in playing Susan Bennett? I don't know. Let's bring her in and see. So that's pretty much how that works. If I think it'd be much easier if I played the same role all the time. If I was always myself, then it'd be easier. Like, oh, we'll offer it to her because that, she can do that with her eyes closed.
I
You know,
got you.
yeah. I confuse people, I guess.
So my question for you, same questions tied to the Ted.
Yeah.
So working alongside Seth, and I saw an interview where you stated that all you had to look at were eyes that's sitting at the table at eye level, and then Ted's off to the side. Seth MacFarlane's off to the side. How did you not keep a straight face? I would not be able to keep a straight face having to hear Seth talk in the background, and then trying to stay calm as
Oh,
that character.
well, technically he's put in this little tiny, I call it the giant goldfish bowl, where, it's basically the soundproof little area where they have all of his little, the motion detectors on everything so they can capture all of his gesticulations and his mannerisms and his emoting. And he's directing at the same time and he's acting in it and he's away from us. So the biggest challenge was, he's off camera, but the bear is in front of you. And every time he talked, we'd all look to the right. We're like, oh, wait, the bear's here. The bear's here. So we couldn't help but, look to where he was off camera instead of where the bear was. So that was always a little, it took some getting used to, but after, about a week, we found our footing.
Yeah, because you kept yourself so poised, and he's trying to. Of course, if you haven't watched the episode, guys, go watch it. He's trying to make you swear.
He's trying to make me swear that one. Yeah, the dinner scene.
Yeah, that is hilarious.
Yeah, that's fun. I was, there are certain shows that have the big dinner scenes. It's always at the dinner table where, everything happens, where everything, all of the dysfunction is always, coming to a head. I love those dinner scenes. They're fun.
Kyle?
The enthusiasm that you bring not only to this interview now, but to all of your characters is just
thanks,
such
man.
a refreshing thing to witness. I mean, since the '90s, it's I've seen you grow and grow and grow, and they're all so distinct. It's not. I think you look at every single project that you've worked on, and they're so different. And I wonder, where does that enthusiasm come? Because as a character actor, I mean, you're pulling so many different avenues, and yet we still have a little bit of flavor that is you, that just translates. So where does that come from?
I just I'm one of those weirdos who never grew out doing what they do. My dad, when I was a kid, and I told him, I had immigrant parents. So I told him, I said, I really want to do this acting thing. They were like, "Well, okay." And I said, and I started saying yes to everything, no matter what it was. It was like a USC film or an AFI film or some like one line or whatever it was. I'd say yes to it. And my dad was so scared for me. He called my manager and he was like, "Listen, Alanna, sometimes she has her head up her ass because she will say yes to dressing up like a chicken and tap dancing in the middle of the freeway if it was, if she's offered this. So please be careful when it comes to these kind of offers for her. You just make sure that they are worth her while because she said yes to everything and it pisses me off." So it's been sort of the way I've been from the time I was a little kid. I'm always I'd have like 7 costumes every Halloween. Like I'm one of those weirdos. I have like theme parties. I'm
Nice.
I'm a real geek. I really do love playing other people. I think it's just so much fun. And the fun thing about my career thus far is you don't get bothered. You know what I mean? You're not like getting followed by people taking pictures of you or anything like that. So I get to hide with everyone else, with the civilians, and I get to, interact with people all the time. No one gives a crap about, I'm not Ariana Grande, who's basically hiding in her house all day long. It's fun because I get to go out and I get to, I can go grab a hamburger at 2:00 in the morning with my husband if I want to. I don't get bugged. It's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we love to hear that. And this interview might be sort of like a compilation or a celebration of your career so far, because I'm sure you got a lot more to look forward to.
Oh,
But
thanks.
I'm gonna bring back a huge kind of, I think, breakthrough, if we want to call it that. And I have a little bit of a backstory. So
Okay.
in middle school and high school, I was part of a choir. I take that back.
Oh, Sister Act 2.
In high school and college, I was part of a choir and then a chorale. And with both schools, whenever we would go on a trip that involved a charter bus and driving, overnight
Right.
and stuff, every single trip we took, no matter where it was, Sister Act 2 is playing nonstop on the charter bus.
That's
The
okay.
men had no say, by the way. The boys had no say in what we were
Wait,
gonna
wait,
be
wait, wait,
watching
wait.
on this charter bus. It was Nobody had any debate. Sister Act 2 was gonna be playing on the charter bus.
Oh,
So,
thank you. You must
you
have been a little kid. You've gotta, I've gotta have probably like at least 10 years on you. What are you, like 30? 30?
I'll be 40 later this year, so thank you so
Oh,
much.
wow. Okay. Wow. That's God. You look
I
like a
appreciate that.
child.
Thank you so much. And
Okay.
you're just turning 35 right now, so we're
I
not,
love you.
we're
So
not that far
you
apart.
must have been 10 when because I just started driving. So I was like 16, 17. So you were like 9, 10 years old. You were in the 4th or 5th grade?
Something like that,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
Sister Act 2, it must have been as fun making that film. Probably chaos with that many
Those,
teenagers,
oh my gosh.
youth in that movie. But I mean, this is gonna be really hard to answer. But what's some of your fondest memories of being on that set, making that film with Whoopi Goldberg?
Lori Hill, we were all puppies. Lauren Hill was just a puppy.
Yeah,
And she had this drawing of this sort of rubber glove, this hand holding 3 babies. And she went over to me and she showed it to me and she said, "Alanna, can you look at this and tell me what you see with all of this?" And I'm like, "Huh." All 3 babies being held by this one hand. Um, you're all from like the same womb? Are you guys triplets or something like that? She was like, "Yeah, that's basically what it is." And I was like, "Oh, well, what's it for?" She said, "I'm in this group. We call ourselves the Fugees." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds great." And I walked away saying, "Fugees? They're gonna get sued by that Japanese company. That's not a good that's a terrible name. They're gonna get sued.
yeah,
They should be called like Super Fat or Dynamic Trio or something, but not
yeah.
Fugees." I'll never forget that. And I'm in my car heading back from a shoot and thinking, "Ah, poor thing. Gosh, I hope she changes that, name, that working title sooner or later because it's not gonna work." Anyway, was I ever wrong?
Wow.
But she was
Oh,
very sweet and very young and wanted to graduate. She wanted to go to her graduation, and I had the same problem going on, and they were nice enough to let us go for one day to graduate high school and then come back and, you know
nice.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. Yeah, a lot of us were, we were little kids. We were still in high school. We were still, I think Love Hewitt
The
she was
youngest, right, of the bunch?
14.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a ninth grader. I'm not sure, but yeah, she was just a little bean.
So with that talks being about doing the Sister Act 3, do
Are they
you
going to do a Sister Act 3? Really?
that's what talks are. I don't know if it's official, but some people have been mentioning it, rumors.
I
Um
mean, wouldn't that be great? Legally Blonde 3, a little Sister Act 3, maybe Waiting 3. That would be amazing. I'd be
Oh,
oh,
able to
greatest
that's
pay
hits
off
coming back.
I'd be able to pay off my treehouse. That'd be amazing. Hallelujah.
Well, I have to segue to you've been in so many great projects that my family has grown up with. I grew up with so many, especially Legally Blonde. But for me, Coco was such an important movie for the culture, and I remember going to the movies with my grandparents, sitting there with my grandma. And Mama Coco, I'd look over at my grandma and I cried in the movies because I saw that. I saw our heritage, and it was such a unique thing that Disney ran with. And so what did that mean? And I know it's almost immeasurable because it impacted culture so much and shared our culture. But what
It,
did that mean for you?
oh, so much. Very, very emotional for me. I mean, number one, I was pregnant when we were recording all of that. So, of course, I'll never forget that. Obviously, not being able at one point to fly to Emeryville, where the Pixar headquarters were. I just couldn't fly at this point. I was just so pregnant, and so they came to me, and we ended up recording La Llorona at Warner Brothers. And I remember just like driving myself and thinking, gosh, this is a really, really tough song. Well, I hope I do it justice. Let's see. And I was sitting down, and they put a little, I had, my bacon and eggs and toast and a nice glass of orange juice. I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. And we got it done in about 3 takes, and I was out the door. It's just so, the whole process of these recordings, or you see such a different side of it because you're a part of the making of it. And it's so interesting. It was such a in spite of it being such a huge cast, it's a very solitary job
Sure.
nowadays. You're basically brought in all by yourself with just Leon, the director. It's just you and him and the engineer, and you're going over these scenes over and over again, and it's just your dialogue. So you don't really meet anyone that you're acting with until the actual night of the premiere,
Wow.
or,
Wow.
It's
when you're doing
incredible.
press with everybody. It's just
Right.
so odd. It's a fascinating bird.
You did
And
such a
such a
beautiful job
Thank you.
with that song. I mean, La Llorona was my son's 3 and he has not watched Coco yet, but
Wow.
he loves that song. He sings it with my mom, and there's just something beautiful about that
Oh yeah.
uh yeah.
What I love so much is that it really did shine the sophistication and the intelligence of the Mexican culture that, during that time was under such a magnifying glass, that year when it came out, right? And
right.
we're stereotyped in such a big way.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me, but everyone just really, really gravitated toward the fact that in spite of our differences and the divide, that familia really is the most important thing at the end of the day, to most cultures, to every culture, I think, So
Yeah, yeah.
that's something that I thought was so profound and wild. And we got to perform it live at the Hollywood Bowl, and my mother got to see it, and she was, born in Sinaloa in Mexico and moved here when she was 3 and to Los Angeles. And for
Wow.
her to see that live was a huge deal for me because she passed away a year later. So
Oh
it
man.
was, it was, I was like, oh, okay, well, at least you saw that. This is good. It got
Wow.
that. But she just walked away smiling, and it was an amazing evening. And just the fact that it meant so much to her, because my father was born in Puerto Rico, my mother was born in Mexico. That side of the family was very touched.
I can imagine.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
actually
So,
you actually got ahead of me because my next question was about that Hollywood Bowl performance. I've watched it a number of times,
no way.
and a lot of actors do not get to, kind of get put into this spotlight. They're used to being in front of a camera, not
Right,
a lot of energy, just kind of
right.
doing their craft. But
As
you are in front
long as
of tens
possible.
of thousands of people. Tell us about that experience. Were you nervous? Because I don't know how much singing you've done in front of live audiences growing up.
It was a friend of mine who actually performed one time in front of the Hollywood Bowl. I asked him, I said, what is it like? What is it like? He was like, oh my gosh, you feel like you're floating. It's the coolest experience ever. And so, we had rehearsed so much. By the time we actually performed it, it was really, really exciting
Mm.
because, you know, in spite of the fact that it is at the Hollywood Bowl, and you're doing as much preparation as you possibly can. We're in the middle of the desert, and our voices were so dry. We were just downing water bottles after water bottles for forever right before going on stage, and then you're sort of relieved once it's over. You're like, oh good, I didn't faint. Okay, great. I didn't faint. Okay, well, next song. And that was really something. My baby, my little boy, he was I think 3 years old when we did that, and he thought he couldn't understand why I was up there and not looking at him, or I was being chased by these people. He went crazy. He went nuts. Just now at the age of 6, he's understanding what I do for a living, just to a little bit. I don't bring him on set or anything. That was the first time he ever saw me perform, and he was really freaked out.
Well,
Yeah.
you left him with a mark that when he gets older, he'll be able to look back and see what a mark you left with that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. He kind of understood. I said, that's me. I'm behind that skeleton there. And he was like, that's not you. You don't look like that. You're lying. So as he's gotten older, he sort of understands it.
When you auditioned for this role, most of them, they have it where it's kind of like, you know, secret scripts. You don't know what the title is. It's a fake script title. Or did you already know what the title of the movie was and what you were going for? There was no
I didn't
secrecy.
understand it. There was this. They sent me a script. No, they just send you the scene. They sent me this one scene, and she was complaining that her photo wasn't up, and she was complaining to her family. And they said, this woman is like the matriarch of the family, and just record yourself. And I thought she was at the DMV. I didn't understand why she was complaining that her photo wasn't being taken, or it was gone or something, and then her family was there. I was just like, is she mad that her photo wasn't there? They made it they took out a lot of the dialogue, so you couldn't really understand what was going on. And I kept rehearsing it out loud, and my husband looked at me and he was like, Alanna. I said, what? He was like, she's dead. She's dead. It's the afterlife. It's got to be the afterlife. I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
It's like, come on, it's Disney, it's Pixar. It's got to be the afterlife. I'm like, oh, I see now. Okay, this is what's going on. But I really didn't understand how important the role was. Who else was? What other characters were in it? Who was the protagonist, the antagonist? I didn't really understand anything. Then they brought me back to do one more recording in Santa Monica, and I met Lee. And I sat there and we had a wonderful conversation. And he asked me about Rango, which is the Gore Verbinski animated movie that I worked on. And he was just like, what was that like? I said, that was wonderful. And I had a great time and blah, blah, blah. And really didn't hear from them for a while. And then a couple months later, hey, remember that thing that you tried out for where you thought she was at the DMV? Well, you're going to be recording that, and they're going to be recording in Emeryville. I was like, oh, great. Okay. I really didn't know how you don't know the magnitude of what you're doing. And I think it's kind of good because it protects us and it keeps us less nervous when we're doing it. Right. And then when the night of the premiere, I was so nervous watching it. I was like, oh my God, this is a really big deal. It's so much bigger than me,
Oh my gosh.
funny.
Wow, that is
I
incredible.
feel like that's just something that Disney does. It's very little information that they give to their talent, and I've had a kind of a quick story with a friend of ours, Ross Marquand, who does a lot of voice acting work. One of his experiences was like a van showed up, they kind of put him in it. I was like, did they like put a bag over your head? He goes like,
Right,
almost.
right.
Drove him to a facility, gave him some stuff to read, and then drove him out. And it's like, that's just how Disney does it.
It's just how they do it. It's Fort Knox,
Yeah.
And there was an urgency. I remember the urgency of having to record the little boy, of having to record him. Miguel was, I think, 11 when they hired him, 10 or 11. and they were afraid his voice was going to change. So they were really like getting it going. You know, we don't have much time. His voice is going to change, and then it's going to be a mess. So, you know, I remember that all of his stuff had been recorded by the time I got there.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was able to hear him, and I was like, oh my God, what a precious little voice. What is it? That's adorable. They're like, oh my gosh. And he sings and everything. It was he's such a talent, such a talent.
Amazing.
So you've got a gift, because the actors, the roles you portray, you can go from that character that you did in Coco, and then you've got Waiting, you've got Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that character of Roxy? Was it part of the script, or was a lot of it that you improvised with that character?
There was this character that I saw on YouTube, and it was this woman who was like on a date with this guy, and they were like just the worst pair. And I loved her. I just watched her all the time. I thought she was so damn funny. And she was just, you know, very, very open about being a lady of the night. And she was so damn confident about who she was. And I thought, wow, I was almost, let me put, the battery's getting low here. I was so, just taken by how confident she was being a hooker. And I thought, yeah, that's it. That's Roxy. That's who she is. She doesn't give a crap what anyone thinks. This is what's going to be so cool about her. And also she, I thought, well, this is going to be a character. It's got to be really believable that Danny DeVito could hang with her all the time and would want to be with her for the rest of his life. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. And ironically, what was so fun about that, I went and I read for Wendy Murphy, just this amazing casting director who calls me in all the time. And I thought, well, let's, you know, at one point I like slid off the chair. I sort of played, I did everything on the ground. It was just so, I was like, you know, for me, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is the Three Stooges. It is the
Yes.
modern day Three Stooges, and I love the Three Stooges. They're the Marx Brothers. They are the Marx Brothers. So I thought the sillier, the better with this, and that's so much fun. So much fun. Danny DeVito he played my father in Renaissance Man. So the first day of shooting, I was like, Daddy, do you remember me? It's Alanna. I played your daughter in Renaissance Man. He's like, oh my God, this is gonna be so funny. So I said, I was like, I'm really gonna make out with you, okay? Is that all right? Or, you know, we could do like a fake stage kiss, but I don't think it's gonna be, I don't think it's gonna sell it as much. He's like, you could do whatever you want. He was so freaking cool. I grabbed him and I just made out with him, and it was wet and sloppy and funny.
You pulled it off. You knocked it out of the park. I mean, especially when you're actually in, I guess, the store, and you're looking at the leather jacket and everything. And
Yeah.
it's just, if you haven't watched that episode,
man.
yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta watch that episode. It's hilarious. But that's my question. That's all I had to ask for Sunny. What do you got, Kyle?
Well, I'm gonna pivot to Legally Blonde because it came out in a really interesting time in my life where I was absorbing everything in television and movies, and it sort of set the bar for what college would be like for me. So
Really?
yeah, it did. You know, and how fun was it to be on that set? I mean, it just seemed the sorority life, and just, you know, those scenes were so believable.
Well, it's so funny because we were all like, you know, 25, 26 playing, you know, playing these college students, which is really funny. I think I was the last person to get cast. Jessica Caulfield had already been cast. You know, everyone had been cast. I think I was one of the last people. So when we finally, by the time they cast me, it was, you know, maybe one rehearsal, and then all of a sudden we were just, you know, I was on this sailboat that, you know, wouldn't stop for a couple of months. and it was a lot of fun. It was just so much fun. I mean, those girls that that I've seen or met at a party, where everything is just so powder blue, and there's just their bread is buttered, and they have nothing to worry about, and they're healthy and sweet and cute, and they're in a sorority, and they just everything. They've never had anything terrible happen to them, and nothing ever will. It's just one of those girls, And I thought, wow, to hide behind that for a couple of months, it's going to be really fun. And then I'll go back to my ridiculous, pathetic, effed up life.
You did a great job.
Thanks.
I told you this is going to be like a celebration of your career so far. The immediate moment that I understood how talented you were was when I came to the realization you were Isabel in Meet the
Meet the
Fockers.
Fockers. Yeah.
I was like, that's no way that's the same person that I saw in Sister Act 2 and all these other things. There's no way that's the same person. And it was just incredible. You are a chameleon. I feel like you do not have a limit to what you can accomplish because you're playing. I don't know how old she was, but I assume she was in her like 50s
Yeah, she was in
or
her 50s. And I've always looked like when I was 7, I looked 37. Like you know what I mean? I've got this big old chin. Like I've got like witchy kind of features. I can look old. And I think it's funny, but I went out for the roles that most women are really embarrassed to go out for. And I don't know, it's funny. We were doing Waiting, and I'll never forget it, but like,
Oh, I love that.
Robbie McNeil wanted that one scene he wrote in where, she flashes everyone. Like we didn't know who was going to be the flasher yet.
Sure.
So he goes to Caitlin Doubleday and he knocks on, her trailer door, and she's like, "Hey, what's going on, Robbie?" He was like, "Listen, we want to do this like reveal the vagina scene. And I mean, it's not going to be your vagina. We're going to get a double. Trust me. We're going to get one of those strippers across the street at that titty bar. And we're going to, offer her, $1,000, and it's going to be her vagina. But would you do it?" She's like, practically slammed the door in her face. She's like, "Are you out of your freaking mind?" No. Bam. Goes to Anna Faris. She was like, No, I've already did that Wayans Brothers thing. It's just no, it's not going to be funny if I do it.
He's over it. Yeah.
Bam. Yeah. Emmanuel Hadika, will you do it? She's like, "Are you out of your mind?" No. Bam. He finally knocks on my door. I was like, "Absolutely. But it better be the ugliest looking vagina you've ever seen. I want cottage cheese coming off of that crap. I want like crumbs and paper clips and like just stupid crap that the kids are gonna go crazy over." And he's like, "You got it." So it was really funny. They put this merkin from the hair and makeup had like a merkin, right? And so they added like all of this ridiculous stuff onto it and everything like that. And I was like, "Throw a gummy bear in there, like make it look so ridiculous, like I haven't paid in years." And so, but yeah, it was very funny doing that whole scene. I think what happens is, I get so I was such a movie buff as a kid growing up. My dad, who he didn't really get it renting movies, but he'd like be in his little car smoking a cigarette, and he'd be like, "Yeah, go rent your movies and I'll be right here. I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette or whatever. Take your time." So I'd go in and I'd come out with movies like I Spit on Your Grave. And I was like 9. So
Wow.
I'd have like I Spit on Your Grave and Sid and Nancy and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Summer Lovers, which is practically soft porn. And I'd be like, "Dad, these are the movies I'm watching." He was like, "Oh, good for you. Oh, look at I Spit on Your Grave. She looks very mad." And so we'd go and have dinner. And my mom and dad would be upstairs watching Johnny Carson, and I'd be like watching one movie after another after another.
Wow.
So really understanding the sort of genre that these movies are is what really excites me. It's
Sure.
like, oh my God, this waiting, the college kids are going to love this. The high school students are going to love this. So you put yourself in the mind frame of what will make them crack up, what will make them so happy to, you know what I mean? It's just like, how can I, you're always in a lab. I always think of, constantly being in the lab with these little beakers trying to figure out what formula is going to make people happy, cry, crack up, quote something you've said. I'm always keeping the audience in mind constantly. It's just like, how can I give them a bunch of little goodies to play with? It's sort of that thing.
So you're
It's
like,
working.
so I put her up there with Manu Ginobili. She's there to pull the wind off when you need her. She does everything that you don't expect as an actress. So
Well,
going back to the waiting thing.
Can't get embarrassed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You said you do the jobs other people don't want to do, and in waiting, perfect example. The question I wanted to ask was, how much of that was improv and actually the script? Because
Oh, it was only our actions were pretty much improv, but the rest of the most of it was scripted. That's I mean, Rob was McKittrick was did I say McNeil? Rob McNeil was the producer of Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce. I know a lot of Robs. Rob McKittrick, his dialogue was so funny, and it kind of read a little bit like an opera. It's just like, shut the fucking noise, everything had a button. There was a sing-songiness to the dialogue. So a lot of it was not, most of it was not improvised. You didn't really have space for it. You didn't have room.
Well, you did a great job. I mean,
together.
Yeah, because especially like when you're watching the guy, and I remember this, like I just watched yesterday. You're watching him trying to figure out where to take the plates at, and you're like this, like you're getting mad because you're like, dude, really get out of the way.
Damn it! Yeah.
That was hilarious. That would be me.
Yeah, it's the. I mean, all of those, they were so fun. Those comedians, man. I mean, for him to have grabbed all of those comedians sort of before they hit, like Dane Cook, you had, and Ryan Reynolds. I think he had just gotten out off of RoboCop. Was it the movie RoboCop? Was it or
no?
It was I don't know, something huge that made him a very big household name.
Van Wilder, I think.
Yeah, it was Van Wilder, and so he was really hard to pin down. He was very busy. He was starting to get very busy. So we sort of worked around, his availability, and so everyone sort of scrambled, trying to. It's almost impossible to try and get all of those actors to be on a set for 2 months. You know what I mean? To hold them, it's like you sort of have to wait in a queue. Of how to pin all a huge cast like that down is just a feat. It's such a feat unto itself. I don't know how they do it.
Earlier you mentioned you have this geekiness to you, this geeky side, and we're all big movie buffs, and so in the community we call it a fandom. What is something that just resonates with us in film? And is there any fandoms out there, the big blockbuster movies that you could just sit back and watch forever?
When I love suspense. I love suspense. And when it's done, when there's a redo of something that had been a huge hit in like the 70s or the 80s, I get so upset. When A Stranger Calls came out of the second time, I was like, no, God, oh God. I can watch When a Stranger Calls over and over and over. The original with Colleen Dewhurst, right? And it was, I mean, to me, when the acting is brilliant and it's giving you something you've never seen before, and it's very simple the way the shots were done. We don't see a lot of gore. It's just the idea of someone being in the house and calling you from upstairs and taunting you to me after having killed the kids with his bare hands. It's so original and so creepy. And we didn't see any of the murder scenes. We don't see anything. It's all in the fear of the babysitter, the phone calls that she's getting, and then that final call from the police department saying we've traced the call, it's coming from inside the house. And it's also the score of that movie was so freaking freaky, and it just worked perfectly. I love those. I like movies that leave, rocks in our shoes. I loved Sid and Nancy. I thought the performances were phenomenal. Chloe Webb was probably, I think, one of the best actresses that was right here with Gary Oldman. I mean, not too many people can play ball with that guy, and she was right there with him. She was equally phenomenal in that. I loved Carrie. I love the movie Carrie.
Yeah.
So rad. Sissy Spacek was phenomenal. Those movies to me are fantastic. I loved Author, Kramer versus Kramer. I really love old style films. The Holdovers to me really grabbed me in such a big way because I think Alexander Payne is phenomenal. I'd love to work with him in something. I think he's just my favorite.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was going to ask something kind of close to that. You've worked with some, legendary people, Dustin Hoffman, Bob De Niro in your past. Is there anybody who you've always wanted to either work with, or is there something that you've learned from working with another actor or another actress that you've always carried with you?
Well, I couldn't believe when I got hired for Meet the Fockers, I thought, oh, well, bucket list. I'm going to check them off. Barbara Streisand, Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, Ben Stiller. This is amazing. And I got to meet all of them, and they're so sweet.
Nice.
But it's really interesting. You'd think that these A-listers were like a pain in the ass or a little difficult. I was expecting that because they can get away with that stuff.
Sure.
Make demands, this, that, and the other. Oh my gosh. Dustin Hoffman, a friend of mine, there was this one guy on the set who said, I feel like Dustin Hoffman's biggest fan woke up one day and realized he was in his body and was like, oh my God. Oh my God, I'm in Dustin Hoffman. He's so excited to be Dustin Hoffman. It's so cute. It's so flippin' funny. And Robert De Niro is very sweet and such a total family man. He had his kids with him all day long. He had like a different family member coming and visiting him for lunch all the time. He has to be with his family, big family, big, super Italian, very, very close to his kids. And Barbara Streisand was adorable. She had her little thermos with her soup. She was just hysterical. She was, chatty, like to chat. I mean, and very serious once those cameras started rolling. Bam. You were like, oh, that's why they are where they are,
So since you got a son, and we're geeks here, Countdown City Geeks, and I'm also part of Star Wars Stuff podcast, so I have to ask the question: have you introduced him into Star Wars yet?
Oh, you guys, there is this. Of course, I did, and there is this app. It's the Star Wars game, but it's all Lego characters. It drives me crazy. It's violent. And I don't know how he found it, but he found it. He found the game, and he gets his little iPad, and he's just on it all the time. I literally have to pry it out of his hands before dinner time. I mean, before bath time, before bedtime. He's addicted. And it's fascinating. The kid is 6 years old, and I started to show him all of the trilogies. I didn't think he'd pay attention to anything, but he knows the last names and the fact that he was like, it's Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia. They're twins, they're siblings. He just knows everyone, who Obi-Wan Kenobi and their relationship with each other. I never paid attention to that shit when I was a kid. I paid attention to all of it. I couldn't believe it.
Nice.
Amazing.
That is so cool.
Yeah, he's got a Darth Vader lunchbox. No, the backpack and he is, I mean, it just drives me crazy. He is fascinated by all of that. Man, George Lucas, he really knew what he was doing. He really knew I mean, my God. Apparently, you want to hear a really funny story? So
Always.
a buddy of mine, his name was Danny, and Danny was telling me this story about a friend of his mom's in the 70s. She was going to, I think she was going to NYU or something like that, and she was set up on a blind date, and went on the blind date, was being polite, blah 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 blah, and came back and told her girlfriend who set her up, she was like, "Don't ever set me up on a blind date again." She was like, "Why?" She was like, "Oh my God, the guy was just such a nerd. He just kept talking about like these characters he was making, Boba Fett and some other Wookiees or Chewbacca or something." She's like, "I was going out of my mind. I just wanted to have a nice dinner." It was George Lucas.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
And when he came out with Star Wars, she was like, "That's the guy!
Oh my
That's
God.
the guy!" Yeah. So he was
Oh,
talking
that's so
about these
cool.
little characters on a date, and she was just not. She didn't bite. She didn't take the bait.
Well, we weren't cool then. That's too funny.
There you go. Well, you are now. You showed them.
Well, I'll throw out my last question to you.
Yeah.
You've been in such iconic films that just the comedy in them has just, it's going to be around forever. But is there anything that you kept from the set? Any wardrobe or anything that you said, "I just have to have this to remember this forever"?
Any wardrobe or anything that I kept from the set? Oh, wait, hold on. I'll be right back. Stay here, you guys. Don't go anywhere.
Nice.
Yay!
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Look how little he is. He's just a little
That's
guy. He's
that's
so
so
tiny.
cool.
We basically got we basically had these a doll that is exactly Ted's size to take home and practice with, because I thought, I mean, watching the movie, I thought he was a lot taller. He's not. Look, he's tiny. He comes up to my knees.
Yeah.
So, I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting to practice my eye line with him and stuff like that. But yeah, we were all given these little guys. So yeah. And
Wow.
of course I had to go into my son's room to grab it off of the bed and bring it over here, because he is madly in love with this little guy. He sleeps with him. He's just,
Nice.
they really knew what they were doing with this guy.
Are you hoping that we're gonna get a season 2?
Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be great? That'd be fantastic. It's really cool because they shoot it over at Universal Studios, and I'm like 10 minutes away. It was one of the coolest gigs I've ever had. First of all, Seth MacFarlane is one of the sweetest people you've ever met in your life. He's so down to earth. It was so nice to have him directing every single episode. Right. He was phenomenal. Scott Grimes is such a love. Max and Georgia, they're just so down to earth. You can't wait to go to work. How weird is that? No one likes going to work. I loved going to work. Yeah, I didn't want to leave. And he's so sweet. He's very, he's very, very, very cool about not going over time. So he's like, we'll start at 8:00 and we'll finish by 8:00. He's like, I'm not gonna, work you guys till we're, passing out. That's ridiculous. He has everyone is so happy. The crew, everyone just loves being with him. He's and the writers on this, they're just so quick. I've never seen so many highly intelligent people in one room. It's super intimidating. I mean, they're not messing around with those jokes and ideas, right?
Oh no, they're not.
Oh,
Those jokes were hilarious. The whole show, I couldn't stop laughing.
oh my gosh. It was so fun, so much fun.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant show. It's so witty. It's just
Thank you.
nonstop comedy. And according to the internet, it's one of Peacock's, if not the biggest hit
I
they've had so
know.
far. So
I can't. It's so crazy. We had no idea. We had no idea. We didn't think it would get great reviews. We were just having fun, and we were like, "Oh, no one's gonna get this, probably." And who cares? Oh my God, we were all really taken by surprise.
well, it's
That's awesome.
fantastic. It would seem like a no-brainer to go ahead and renew it for a second season, if you ask us.
I think so.
For
I think
sure,
so.
definitely
It was
needs to.
actually Universal's idea. They brought Seth in for a meeting. They were like, "What do you think about doing like a prequel to Ted to make it a series?" And he said, "Really? You think people are gonna like that? Okay, yeah, let's do it." Brought all of his peeps on board, and that was it. The rest is history.
Well, we absolutely love it. If you haven't seen it yet, folks, viewers out there right now, Ted, the first season is on Peacock right now. It is hysterical. It's laugh out loud funny. Go check it out. Lana, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
we
Thanks for
love
having me. This was
all
lovely.
all your movies, and you're absolutely fantastic in all of them. So thank you again for doing this, and we cannot wait to see more of you in the future. Legally Blonde 3, Sister Act 3. Let's crossing our fingers. You're a part of all those projects.
You'll be the first to know, man. I'd love to be back. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.